in life, you will always have pain. Like there's pain. There's blisters on your feet on the Camino. There is, how am I going to make today's mortgage payment? There is, my kids are struggling with this and I can't solve this problem for them, right? So there's pain. You will always, always have pain. Suffering comes when you resist the pain and fight against the pain. That's what suffering is. So when I have pain, like my kid's going through something and it's a big struggle and I can't fix it for them. I can't help them, but I push back. I try to give them advice that they're not taking, or I get frustrated because I want this to be something that goes away for them and it doesn't. I mean, heartache, you can't heartache away. You can't make heartache go away for somebody else. Whatever the case may be. And so I'm resisting that and I'm fighting against that. That's when I start suffering as an individual. Likewise, in the business world, if you are struggling and having pain in to grow your business, and I resist it and I refuse to commit to a date, it creates suffering, right? So for me, this is huge. As soon as I heard this, I was like, oh, I can't change the fact that I have pain. There's always going to be pain in your life, physical pain, mental pain, but I can choose how I respond to it and whether I resist it, whether I accept it, understand where it's at physically inside my body and deal with that and move on. I can do that. And if I can do that, then I don't have to suffer anymore.
Hey, everybody, I'm here with Bob Younger, and we are going to talk about his journey of being in law enforcement for 3 decades here in Northern Colorado, as well as his new journey of diving into entrepreneurship. You can't miss this episode. We're also going to talk about our recent adventure we had on the Camino in Spain. Check it out. Bob Younger.
Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm so honored.
Man, I've been excited for this episode. Coming up. No, man, I really have. Really have.
That's so kind of you to say.
We had just a super cool experience together a couple months back.
We did.
Relatively new friends. You and I have known of each other here in town. We have a lot of mutual acquaintances, business contacts. Mm-hmm. And everybody kept, you got to meet Bob, Like, hey, Bob, want to go to Spain?
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
And I'm like, do I want to go to Spain? You had me at, do I want to?
What were your thoughts? Because we literally met in person back in 2020. We were just talking about this during COVID.
Yep.
We had done some stuff and dropped some gear off at the law enforcement agency that you're a part of.
That's right.
You see what I did there?
Yeah, you did really good. Yeah. No,
and that's the first time we met.
That's the first time we met in person. I knew of you, and I think I had even talked to you maybe on the phone or something, but I think that was the first time we met in person. And I remember thinking, man, this guy's kind of cool. He's just given of his own time and his own, money out of his pocket or business or whatever to provide resources to a law enforcement agency during COVID, which we were desperately in need of. And then I started I'm going to start watching this guy. People are like, hey, watch Matt. You need to be paying attention to Matt. He's got some stuff going on. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then, and then I reached out to you, what was it, that was probably about a year ago, beginning of last year when we were putting together the Hike of a Lifetime.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, first time we got a chance to spend time together. It was a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of miles.
Yeah.
Love to dive into that. And then I want to talk about your business too.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not getting out of here without talking business with me.
I love it. Yeah, I know you're going to hold my feet to the fire, aren't you? If you don't know, Matt's trying to mentor me in my business and he's good. He's tough, but he's good.
So let's talk about Spain.
Yeah.
What was your initial impression, right? So had me at, hey, do you want to go to Spain?
Yeah. Well, anytime a potential client or somebody contacts me about a job, I'm thinking about what's the best way I can serve them. And so I'm like, what is Matt going to need from me? So I'm thinking the entire time, like, okay, he needs photos, but he needs a story. He needs to be able to tell, people about what he's got going on and why he's doing this. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, did I get myself in over my head? Because not only do I have to take pictures, which I think I can do, but then I have to be able to tell a story and I have to do it while hiking.
Long way.
And I know none of you out there watching this can tell. I look very svelte and trim, but I'm an old fat bald guy. And so then I'm like, okay, now I got to worry about being able to hike this trail. So I start looking up information. And your first search of the Camino, there's 25, 35 different trails, right? There's a ton of them.
They all lead to Santiago, but they start
all over. Some of them are going through the Pyrenees and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. So then I start reaching out to, you had Justin Vetters here. So I reached out to Justin and him and his wife and talked about, hey, what do I got to do to get in shape? And I kept putting that off. And so eventually, when the time came, I'm like, okay, I've literally done nothing really to prepare for this, but mindset is way more important than physical, prowess, I would say. And mindset pulled me through.
It did.
Yeah.
So talk about that first morning. You guys, I think, leave on a Sunday, get there on a Monday. So you're all night, overnight flight. And you just hooked up with the gang, right?
Yeah.
So Tom and Chris and Brian and Travis.
Yep.
You don't know any of them.
None of them.
Okay.
And this is my first time going anywhere outside the U.S. besides Mexico. So first time to Europe, and the flight was fun. I don't sleep well anyway, and then you add to that, you're trying to sleep next to some big guy who's snoring and another guy who's spilling coffee on you or whatever, and I'm thinking, this is starting out tough because I'm going to have a hard time sleeping. And I, of course, nobody I don't think slept that first night on the trip there, and maybe a couple of people did, but I didn't sleep. And then when we all kind of start meeting up there in Spain, and we're just like, you first meet people. I don't know if you know this. I'm kind of gregarious. I'm kind of extroverted, just a little bit. Okay. And so I have no problem meeting people and talking to people, but I was kind of holding back. And if you look back on Greg Birch's conversation, you guys are talking, it's like, Bob's just talking all the time. I'm like, I didn't see myself as being the talker, but apparently I was. And just getting to know these people, and Greg, I mean, he's this gigantor, right? So we're sitting in the airport waiting for all the crowd to come in, and he's coming from another place. And here's this gigantic statue of a person walking beyond everybody. Like his head is 2 feet over,
2 feet taller,
above everybody.
Yeah.
And, first impressions, I really try hard not to have first impressions of people until I get to know them. But, my first impression was like, this guy's a giant walking muscle. He's huge, and then all the other people in our group, Chris and Travis and Tom, I mean, everybody in the group was just absolutely amazing. Brian, who did videography for you. By the end of it, and I'll talk probably a little bit about the nonprofit I ran for at-risk youth, but at the end of it, you start out with your preconceived notions of what people are like, and at the end of it, it's completely different. Yeah. And so now all these guys are my brothers. Like, they're like literally my brothers. And I grew up with a sister, and I'm the father of 4 daughters. So I don't know what it's like to have a brother. And now I've got all these brothers. So it's an amazing experience.
And it's wild, right? So nobody knows anybody other than the fact that you all know me to some degree.
Right.
And then some of you, I think, a little bit here, a little bit there, right?
Yep.
Chris knew Travis, things like that. But we're talking 7 days later. Mm-hmm. That experience, I mean, tight brothers, family, the things that were shared, that were discussed.
Yeah, I mean, you're walking on if you've never walked the Camino, I can say this now because I've walked it. Like, I know I'm like some expert now, but if you've never walked the Camino, it's a life-changing experience. The people you meet, the things you do, the food and the drink. And in the process of that is also who you're with. Like, some people choose to walk the Camino for a religious reason. Some people choose to walk it there's lots of different reasons to walk it, and your guidance and leadership, we were like, how to unplug, how can we be better people in our communities and our families, and how can we be better business people, right? Because we all have businesses. And so people walk it for different reasons, but when you're walking that, what you're gaining from that between the relationships you're building on the trail, the people that you're meeting. I mean, we can talk a little bit about my struggles. I'm completely open to, being able to work through a language that you're not familiar with, in a country you're not familiar with, in a social situation you're not familiar with, builds a lot of confidence in you.
Yes.
It's amazing.
So you're out of your comfort zone, but then also connecting with these other men, right? That eventually become brothers. So like, we're all going through our own individual journeys and struggles, but still collectively with this group of guys that are there every step of the way.
100%.
So the first experience we did, right? So we gather up at the airport, jump on the train. We're trying to figure out if the trains are still working. There'd been like massive flooding,
right?
The day prior. And then we roll into the center of Madrid, and you're like, what's for breakfast, right?
And
like, we're doing dessert for breakfast.
Of course, we had like liquid chocolate and churros. I mean,
What'd you think about that?
I thought it was amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've had churros before, and that they were not churros. That was a churro. So yeah, it was stunning.
It was legit.
Yep. Sitting with people you don't know. Literally at one point in time, we've got these, cups like this size or bigger filled with liquid chocolate.
We had like 10 of them.
Yeah. And we're like, well, we can't let that go to waste. So people started doing shots of chocolate.
This is going to be a good trip.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. So we venture off, like we transport up to, northwest corner of Spain, Galicia. We go get settled at the hotel. It's like, all right, game on. We're walking tomorrow. And I feel like I didn't set you guys up appropriately. I felt like I set the trail up maybe a little bit easier than it was with some of the feedback. But I'm like, hey, first 2 days are heavy days, right? They're 15, 16 miles.
Yeah.
Talk about physically what you went through and experienced those, especially that first day, right?
Yeah.
First and second.
So background, I was a park ranger for a couple summers. I've run a camp for at-risk youth in the mountains for many, many years. So I'm familiar with hiking and biking and stuff, very comfortable outdoors, fly fish and so forth. But I've never been like a long distance hiker. But I'm like, it's a trail. I've seen pictures of the trail. It's not like you're hiking Rocky Mountain National Park to get to the top of Longs or anything. It looks completely feasible. So I chose some shoes and socks that are like, hey, these are super comfortable, no problem. And I walked around town with them plenty, But when you start walking 16, 20 miles in the same shoes and socks for an entire day, pretty much nonstop, your perception of what's acceptable changes, right, over time. And my perception of acceptable changed about lunchtime.
It was about lunchtime.
Yeah. I took my shoes and socks off and I looked at the bottom of my feet and I said, oh, this is not good. I could see some blisters, and they're not like blisters. They're like blisters forming. And immediately I recognized, oh, this is going to be challenging. And it's not challenging in a sense, like there were some people like Travis. I mean, Travis and Greg, they're getting to our destinations and they're running at night. During the hike, they're doing 100 plus push-ups during the day. Yeah. Amazing specimens of physique. This is not that, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can't let the team down. It's the most important thing. Can't let Matt down. I mean, I'm here. I have a purpose, right? My purpose isn't like, oh, I'm going to hike the trail and I'm going to get all this experiences. That's secondary. My primary focus was I'm your employee. You're my client. I'm providing you something of value and I have to make sure I'm doing that. So the entire stress of like, okay, now I've got these blisters that are developing and now I've got some knee joint that's showing up because of the way I'm walking on my feet. By the end of the day, I was a hot mess. When we got to
physically, emotionally. Yeah.
Emotionally, I think I was okay. I was worried.
Were you? Okay.
But I'm one of those persons who's like, the last thing I want to be is the guy who brings anybody else down in the crowd. Like, nope, I'm good. Let's go. I've got this. We're fine. Don't wait for me. Go, go, go. I don't want to be that guy. But mentally, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this is not well. This is not good.
Yeah.
And then working with Brian, the second day. So interestingly enough, so we stopped the first night in I'm going to butcher this, Puerto Marin. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful town, amazing food. And so I immediately go upstairs to my room. I lay down on the bed and I'm like, this is it. I don't think I can move the rest of the night. My feet are butchered. I'm putting ice bags on them and stuff. What did Greg call them? The bags. He was calling the bags a bag of bread or bag of rolls.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah. Oh, okay. But, I think I know what you're talking about.
But, and they're like, hey, let's go to dinner. I'm like, well, when you're hiking the Camino, you're not taking cabs or cars or anything to dinner. You're getting back out and you're hiking back to dinner. Mm-hmm. So now by the end of the day, you're doing 19, 20 miles. Yeah. Realistically, back and forth, wherever you're going and hiking around and seeing stuff. But I was like, I don't want to miss it. I got to go. So I went, and by the next morning, I think I pulled you off to the side and said, hey, bro, I am really sorry, but if I don't do something with my feet, I'm going to be out for the entire trip. I have to do something.
Yeah.
I have to do something. And so my gut reaction was like, you guys go, I will do whatever it takes to catch up with you mentally, physically. I will do whatever it takes to catch up with you. I will fly, I will drive, whatever. But I've got to do something with my feet and I'll catch up with you later. So then that began my journey of trying to figure out what's next. So what was next was you guys took off. I waited for the pharmacy to wake up, open the doors, because in Spain, apparently they were like, whenever, 9, 10,
Ish.
whatever we feel like opening.
Whatever.
And then navigating like a language I don't know, asking for stuff that I don't even know what I need. Like, because in Spain, the pharmacies they're kind of like doctors and nurses too behind the counters.
They are.
Yeah. And so they're like providing medical advice, which you wouldn't happen at CVS at Target, right? They're like, we can't give you advice, but they're providing you medical advice. And so I'm talking to them, I'm getting some stuff I need. I go next door to get a needle to start popping my gigantic blisters, and the lady in there is just like, oh, you need to attach thread to it and sew a piece of thread through your blister so it drains. I'm like, there's no way in heck I'm going to sew my foot, and all this different advice. And I'm still navigating this entire world without any language understanding. So I'm using my Translate app. I'm ordering a cab using my Translate app and everything. But I meet up with you.
Yep.
I catch up with you guys. And I end up having to have the cab take me to a point just beyond where you're at and hike backwards.
Yep.
Well, the trail is one way. And if you start hiking backwards, people will point it out to you.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what Spanish is for idiot, moron, stupid, but I'm sure they were calling me all those things. They're telling me, you're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way. I'm like, yes, I know I'm going the wrong way. And eventually, as I'm hiking along, I see this medical truck with these beautiful people, and they're offering medical assistance to hikers, which I thought was also bizarre. Would never happen here. Yeah. And they helped me dress up my feet, and I met up with you guys. And from that point forward, I'm like, I've got to do whatever it takes. And so that became the point of mind over matter, which was really the life-altering change for me, and we'll get to my quote here, which is what it means to me. Like you've committed to somebody, you've committed to an organization. Now you've got this almost familial relationship with all these people in this group, and you owe them to continue. So my mindset was like, I'm going to do this no matter the amount of pain. I've got this.
Yeah. And you spent day 2, and you were pretty much jumping in the taxi. Hey, go up 2-3 kilometers, whatever it was. Yep. Meet at this spot. There's going to be some good photo ops here.
Yep.
And you just kind of jumped and rested and recovered. And then by day 3, did you do the same thing? Day 3?
No, day 3.
Day 3, you were back on the trail.
And you had arranged for a ride if I needed one. And day 3, I didn't need it. And it was either day 3 or day 4 that I was actually like, I've got to go, because if I stopped, it started hurting. And so I ended up, me and Tom's amazing. Me and Tom made it into.
Tom was a sleeper.
Yeah. We made it into the town 45 minutes before everybody else at the end of the day. And I felt amazing. Like my feet were killing me, but I felt like the accomplishment was amazing. And so that's when I knew, like in my mindset, like I've experienced pain before, but now this was a different level of pain. And I succeeded, and I did not have to worry about pain anymore in my life.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. How did you see that experience and like the lessons just from that part of the experience rolling over into other things you're going through or have gone through?
It's brought a sense of peace to me. And I'll try to do this without getting emotional. I'm an emotional person, but it's brought a sense of peace to me. So first of all, it made me appreciate my wife so much more. We always talk about, women and childbirth, and, it's so hard. And, I don't think men have an understanding what that's like. And if a man tells you he has an understanding what childbirth is like, they're lying to you, right? But it helped me understand like some of the stuff that my wife has been through as far as giving birth. And then, some of the stuff that we've gone through in life before where we're like, oh, woe is me. I'm a victim, and this isn't fair. This is happening to me. It's nothing. Pain is nothing. When you experience true pain, and I'm not implying that this was like the worst pain ever, but it was probably the worst pain for me ever. Like when I'm crawling on the floor at night in the hotel room to get from the bathroom back to the bed, that's pretty bad.
A big shout out and thank you to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D was actually founded by my wife Emily and I back in 2005. And for the last 2 decades, we've been here in northern Colorado of one of the leaders in residential and commercial repainting, as well as most recently installing residential roofs. So if you need to paint, re-roof, you got hit by a hailstorm, we can take care of whatever your home needs from top to bottom. You can find us on the web at mandepainting.com. Hey, just want to give a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. If you're a small business owner, one of the things that you need to navigate to be successful is all things online and digital in terms of marketing and your messaging. Imprint Digital, they're the real deal. They are the professionals, and they know this world inside and out. Make sure to visit their website at imprint-digital.com.
And I'm thinking to myself, if I can stand that, I can stand anything. And so it really was a positional shift in my mind, my process of thinking about suffering and pain, what it means to be uncomfortable, what it means to have a hard time doing something and then succeeding at the other end. Definitely makes a difference. Yeah. So I can thank you for that.
Dude, thank you for being a part of that, man.
Yeah. And like I said, I am an emotional person. I don't think have you had anybody cry in your podcast yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Trying to make everybody
So I'm not
cry.
the only one? Well, yeah, but you do it for different reasons.
So like fast forward, we roll into Santiago and we'll come back to the wine party. But
Which is
we,
best.
We roll into Santiago. Like how did that all culminate for you after those first 2-3 days and everything you went through with just the physical pain? And,
Why are you doing? You're making me emotional, man.
No, man.
So
It's okay, Bob.
I remember the walk into Santiago was hard because Mike, our guide, kept telling us, "Oh, it's a really short walk. It's really close. It's really close." And at the end, I wanted to punch him in the testicles. It wasn't a short walk. That was like one of the longest days ever, right? You get into town and you're like, oh, you can see this amazing structure in the distance, this cathedral, but it takes you a day to get there. It was a long, long hike. And so as I'm walking along and I get into the square and I'm in front of this cathedral and I'm like, this is amazing. This is life-altering experience, being able to see that incredible piece of architecture. Say what you will about, religion and its ability to build monuments to itself and gods and stuff, whatever. To know that people used a chisel and a hammer and put every one of those bricks in place and every one of those rocks to build this amazing structure that looked like that is moving. Yeah. And then to suffer on my way there and succeed and see that in front of me was amazing. I did a live FaceTime with one of my daughters and, damn you. We're going to cut this part, right? I remember doing this live FaceTime with my daughter and just being so proud. So proud. It's just amazing. Sorry.
I'm proud of you, man. That was an amazing experience. And it was an honor to walk down those stairs through those arches with you guys.
It was so cool. The bagpipes, it's sunset basically, and the sun setting and all these people around. It was just so cool. So cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Rewind back. What were your thoughts on the wine party?
The wine party was one of the best things ever. So we roll into this town, Melide?
Yeah,
right?
Melide.
We roll into this town and you had a great opportunity to take full responsibility for that, but you were typical Matt, like, hey, this is I had no idea this was going on.
Zero
Other
idea.
people might have been like, oh yeah, I knew this was happening and this is so cool. No, we roll into this town and we're walking around and we see these people in these T-shirts with writing all over it and they're covered in wine. And we go inside the restaurant where they serve the octopus.
That I knew about.
And it's called pulpo.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And there's a gentleman there who's making the pulpo in the window, and I start talking with him, and he's giving me samples and stuff. And we go in to sit down, and we're all looking around. I was like, what are all these people doing here with all these shirts? They are stained, they're covered and stuff. And you start asking, and you find out there's a wine party, this festival, and it was completely, the word serendipitous doesn't even describe it. So a serendipitous moment is one of those things where, like, once in a lifetime, you would never probably experience this again. It happens spontaneously, and it's so amazing. So we had this serendipitous moment where we had this event occur, and we're like, do you want to go? And we're like, hell yeah, we want to go.
I remember we had that option because it's 2.5 days in. Like, we just got physical ass kickings, and we got to this town a little bit early. Stuff full of food. It's like, we can just go lay down and rest. Yeah. But there's a wine party.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Why would anyone ever choose to not experience completely and fully another culture? And that's what that was. Yeah. And man, did we have a good time. Little kids with squirt guns filled with wine squirting you. Greg taking off his shirt and doing push-ups in the middle of this crowd of 1,000 people. People coming up and writing their names on our shirts and
signing
stuff.
your shirt.
music. The people were so genuinely kind and loving. And it was an amazing, cool experience. Like, I want to go back. Like, let's go back that weekend and go do that again.
It's the second Sunday in September in Melide, Spain.
We got to go.
For anybody that wants to go.
We got to go.
Should we plan the father-son around that? Should we just bump it out?
Plan that,
How would that go?
Or just let's just grab some airplane tickets and just go.
Just go. Just go to the party. I love it. I love it. Well, I wanted to shift gears a little bit because you've spent close to 30 years in law enforcement. So you're part of Northern Colorado law enforcement, and you are like really, really close to closing that chapter.
Yes.
And you launched a business and talk about that because you came out with your business to do business with us and take just amazing photography. And I'd seen your work, like as I knew about you being involved in law enforcement, but then also knew you had the business on this side. I think we did a little photo shoot, headshot session with me.
Yep.
Talk about how did that even start? So you're doing the law enforcement thing,
right?
And then what was that first nudge into the business?
Back up a little bit. I grew up during a year in Yellowstone when my dad had a job there. I was 14, and my dad had brought back from Vietnam a Canon FTQL film camera. And so I used it that entire summer, take film pictures, mail them off. You get them back 2 weeks later. They suck. You learn from your mistakes and try it again, right? And so I had kind of gotten the bug for photography then. But I had lost it. School, life, business, college, my wife and kids and all the other requirements you have, the responsibilities. I'd kind of put that off to the side because I fly fishing. I love all these other things. So 2015, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy another digital camera. I just want to take some nice pictures. So I bought a camera, started taking pictures, and people started like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? I want this. Can you do this for me? And so I thought, that's pretty cool. My wife bought me Lightroom, which is a post-processing software for photos. And then I started seeing like, wow, there's some amazing stuff I can do with these photos. And it progressed into an opportunity where a photographer friend of mine had a storefront in Old Town. And he's like, in 2017, he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to go to Europe for a year. Would you like to sublet this space from me? I'm like, maybe. I don't know if the price is right. Eventually it worked out. The price was right. I ended up renting the space myself. And my good friend, Pat Stryker of Bohemian Foundation, owns the building. And so she worked out a deal with me. And so I got into the space, not ever intending to open a business, not ever intending to do photography full-time ever. And it's just taken off. I just absolutely love it. And I've had the studio down there since 2017. I get to work with some amazing people, some amazing families and clients and models, other photographers. I'm all about collaboration instead of, competing with people. And I just absolutely love it. It's a passion.
So did you feel like that you saw your value before the other people did? Or did you realize that as you're just doing your thing?
No, people kept telling me. Yeah, people kept telling me, this is what your work means to me, or this is how good you are, what you can do. And, you're an entrepreneur. I don't know about you, but on a daily basis, I think we all suffer imposter syndrome.
Yeah, all the time.
And so I work really hard to fight against that. And I mentor other photographers in how to avoid that circumstance. But that was a big part of the very beginning of that business. It was like, felt like I was an imposter. Like, no. These accolades aren't worthy. This, I'm not that good. I'm not that, and it kept coming and coming and coming. And so over time, I was just saying, okay, well, maybe I can do something with this. Maybe I can go somewhere with this, because I honestly thought that I would do law enforcement for 30, 35 years. I would retire and then slip off into the sunset quietly. But now this has got me thinking, like, there's something else out there I can do. There's something else I can do after law enforcement. So when the time's right, I'm going to move on and I'm going to do photography full time.
So when is that time and what does that look like? Because these are the conversations that we've had.
You're tricky, aren't you? Look at you.
Well, no, I think it's so important because we talk, I've spoken to a lot of people in law enforcement, and because just think about it, man, especially with the position you have now, you're not on the streets, you're not patrolling. Like, you've got a really nice position. What did you say the other day? You don't get shot at.
I don't have to drive around in a patrol car. I don't have to wear a uniform. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty unique situation I'm in. I'm the technology sergeant. So, I get to nerd out and see neat new stuff, but I'm the liability and exposure is limited for me. But I feel I feel the pain that other officers feel on a daily basis. It's a different world today. And I started in 1997 in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it's a different world. A lot of it is self-induced on law enforcement, and law enforcement has a responsibility to fix the errors, and they're doing a great job of that. But a lot of it also is perception, and I think we have a historical perspective is law enforcement doesn't do a good job of explaining what they do, why they do it, and how they do it. Part of it is the humble nature of people who serve other people. Yeah. Servants of other people are very humble. They don't want to take accolades. They don't want to take recognition. And they're like, I do it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And they internalize a lot of that. And I think the individual officer on the street internalizes a lot of that daily. And it's very hard. And I think when anyone questions the why or the how, it makes it challenging. I imagine, somebody coming into your business like, hey, why'd you do that? Why did you go do this with that contractor? It makes you question what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it can be challenging. It can pretty much ruin your outlook on the job you're doing if you are a servant at heart.
Well, and to have the eyes on you all the time.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other day. Hey, if I had a camera following me around, listening to everything I said and did on a daily basis, like I'd get fired on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm all about accountability and responsibility. That's super important. And I value, I run our camera program and I value that system and that technology. The part that's hard is just the way we have to do business now and our obligation to provide safe, secure places for our citizens to be, and balance that with like sometimes being a police officer is ugly, Yeah. There's times you have to use force. We don't want to, and the perception is, I shouldn't say the overall perception. There are some who perceive that officers want to use force and some that perceive that officers want to violate people's rights. And I believe from the organization I'm in, that is not the case. Maybe some others, I don't know. I can't speak for others. I strongly believe that's not the case. But I also know that we have an obligation to do the right thing for the right reason at the right time. And being judged on those decisions that have to be done in a split second the next day is very, very hard for police officers. It's very hard. Yeah. It's a tough, tough job.
Man, I thank you for what you do and what you've done. So you're in this unique position where it's hard to leave, right? You've known this for 30 years. You got a good setup right now, but you've also got this successful business, right? Like we were offline wrapping up the numbers and looking at the books and figuring all that out and setting the goals. So what would you say are the top like 2 or 3 struggles that you have? And I'm sure other, not just people in law enforcement, but anybody that's in a nice secure job and they're getting ready to, I call it jump ship.
Yeah, jump
right?
ship, stretch, right.
So what are those things for you that you struggle with?
One of the biggest things for me is that if it were just me that I was responsible for, just me, my financial future, my mortgage, my car payment, I'd be like, I'm willing to take the risk because I know that I'll survive, right? I think the hard part is knowing that I have a responsibility to maintain a house and a home and transportation and food for seemingly 60 some people at my house any given day. Like we've got, kids coming and going, kids partners coming and going, my wife and I, and pets and, all the things in the lifestyle that we want to live. And that's a responsibility because although my wife is an amazing breadwinner in our household and we do this together, internally, I feel like I have this huge responsibility to maintain this safe structure for my family. And stretching beyond this and going into the unknown and not being for sure like, hey, I know I'm going to get this paycheck. Every 2 weeks I get a paycheck from where I work. I don't know that I'll always get a paycheck from this going out onto your own. So, biggest struggle for me, number one, is like knowing that I have something there to fall back on if I need to. And that can be hard.
Yeah. What else?
I think, we talked about the imposter syndrome and not necessarily having the confidence. Like I can tell you, I can go out and take an amazing picture of a person and it's going to look amazing. I have 100% confidence in that. Do I have the confidence that I can do the books? Do I have the confidence that I know what this P&L thing you speak of is, Well,
we don't know if you should be doing that, right? We know it needs to be done.
I don't think that necessarily should be me, right? So
yeah, I don't even do that in mine.
Yeah. And so I think, knowing what you need to offload to other people and other organizations and being prepared to let go. Because if you've started something from the ground up, I mean, you know, I've listened to your story about where you've come from and kind of, you know, your $3,000 you had in a tackle box, right? If you start from a position there, you're used to doing everything yourself, and knowing when is the time to like, okay, I need to hand this off. I need to hand this off. I need to hand this off. And then having the ability and the facilities to back that up. Yeah. So that's number 2. You know, I think number 3 is just, I think probably for me, the number 3 thing that's really big is just knowing where my next client is going to come from and the marketing aspect and knowing, you know, I think one of the most important things an entrepreneur has is their ability to build relationships. You build a relationship, the business will come. And so I'm all about relationships and everything I've ever done. Like I've arrested people, put them in jail, used force on them that was necessary and justifiable, put them in jail. And then 2 weeks later, I'll be out at breakfast or dinner with my wife and someone say, hey, you arrested me. And I'm like, yeah. Hey, thanks for being cool. Thanks for not being a big D. Thanks for treating me like a human being or whatever. So it's all about treating people like $1 million and building those relationships early on. All of the people that I know, the Matt Shoups of the world, the Mike Howards, and all these others that we know, Justin Vetters and Chris and all of our friends are people who I have relationships with now because I have tried very hard to foster in a genuine way a relationship with a person, and those bring business.
If your life or business are cluttered up with junk right now, then you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts Hauling. Hulk Addicts can come out to your home or business to do anything from removing junk to appliances. Maybe you're demoing or doing construction on a property and you need it cleared out. Maybe you need a big dumpster dropped off that they can roll off later. Make sure to check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. They are serving all of Northern Colorado as well as up and down the Front Range. Hey, if you're a business owner and you need to do some renovation in your space or possibly build a building from the ground up, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. Mendel Construction is a commercial construction company that's been around since 1997, serving all of Colorado. They can do a small tenant finish all the way up to ground up construction of a new building for your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com. That's MENDEL and company.com. If you're a Christian small business owner and you live in Northern Colorado, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian executive peer advising group that connects other business owners in the community to help you focus on your faith, your life, your leadership, and your business. Make sure to check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. Yeah.
So I think the hardest part is the timing and setting aside the time to develop more relationships and be a problem solver for people and managing that and another full-time job is huge.
So we concocted a plan. Do we want to call it that?
Yeah.
How's that coming along? Because we talked about it.
I think the plan is good. I think I probably struggle with the timing of that because, you know, like you always say, the jumping ship part is a big part of that, right? I really do love what I do right now for my full-time gig, and I'm very passionate about it. And so, making that big jump and acting on that plan, that's that in part that's internally a battle with me because I can see it on paper. This will work. You have a support structure here. But then actually taking that leap and going, I've got this. That's the hardest part. So it's a struggle, Matt. So talking to you on a weekly basis is what helps me is, you know, like knowing, okay, where are we at in plan A, plan B? Mm-hmm. I am definitely not a process-oriented person. That's my wife. She's very good, very detail-oriented, very process-oriented. I'm the guy that's like, hey, what's the big idea here? Let's make it happen. But then actually putting that into a process and meeting each goal, that's a harder part. That's a challenge.
So you've got the plan. And I think you've got the process to some degree.
Yes.
Lined out. It's a 30-day plan.
30-day plan.
But you haven't committed to when that 30 days is.
That's an accurate statement.
Now you're working the overtime though. So one of the fears or concerns was because you're going to take 30 days of paid vacation. Yeah. To where income's not an issue.
Yes.
You've got the 30 days. You can go all in on the business.
Right.
You're like, but then I use up all my vacation and I want to go watch kids softball and events.
Softball tournaments.
Things
First tournament this weekend. Yeah.
So So have you worked those extra shifts to bank?
I've worked half of one.
Half of one. How many more do you have?
I think ideally in a perfect world, I'd have five or six shifts, which would give me, time and a half in an hour and a half of time for each hour.
Okay.
Would be good. Okay. Yeah.
So are you still cool hanging in the spot of not committing?
No, I wouldn't say I'm cool with that. I think that's anxiety provoking. That's stressful. Anytime you're in limbo between a decision is stressful. So I'm not necessarily comfortable with that. I think in an ideal world, what I would do is I would set a date, and that would be my date that I would shoot for. But yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody. Have you ever talked to anybody else in your podcast who's been at that point where like, yeah, I really need to do this, but I'm really hesitant to do that? Or have you mentored anybody? Because you're a hell of a mentor. You're a great mentor.
Thanks. It's been fun to hang with
Use this
you.
guy. He's a great mentor.
Me.
Joey's just popping in. Yeah. Pop in, Joey.
Yeah, me.
He's mentoring you,
He gives me advice all the time.
and he's really good at it, isn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like he does it, all the time.
And he's very compelling. Matt's a very compelling person. Like, you want to follow Matt. Do what Matt does.
Absolutely.
And not all of it.
That was the previous years.
Yeah, right. Don't go back too far. No, I just think in that situation, like you've got to just do it. Mm-hmm. I think people, well, I should do this. I need to do this. I have to do this. I'm thinking about this. It's all the same language. Failure with honor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you keep shitting, you're gonna shit all over yourself. That's
Right.
what they say.
Right.
So it's like, what's the date, dude? That's what I told Joey. Like, make the decision.
Yeah.
So when's the date?
Wow. Because we talked about April, and April won't work now.
What works?
July.
Okay.
July.
You're taking the month of July off.
July 1.
Okay.
If
1
my
to
boss
31.
sees this before that, that'll be...
We can hold it back, dude. Don't worry. We'll release it around your plan.
Yeah. I think July 1 is much more reasonable.
Okay.
Yep. Because I got plans in August, and July is a slow month for softball because it ends. So I think July 1's a good one.
Like a good one that happens? Like you're doing it?
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
say July 1.
Let's say, or
Let's do July 1.
All right, man. We're doing
All
it.
right.
July 1.
July 1.
Bam. Love it. One of the things too, when I'm looking into just new ventures and trying something, I paint the picture out 10 years, right? And I go, okay, say like this podcast right now.
Right.
I've talk about imposter syndrome. Like I've talked to Joey offline. You pop back in, Joe. I like how Joey kind of pops in here.
Yeah. He's like,
Kind of sounds like the voice of God. Hello, this is Joey. But I mean, how many times, Joey, did I pop out of the studio? I'm like, why am I doing this? Like what, but I look at, okay, 10 years from now, if I look back, whatever happens with the podcast and all the stuff we're doing here, if I tried and it just totally shits the bed, totally fails, versus I don't do it at all and never knew.
and the regret you have after.
Yeah, and I think that's been that longer term perspective for me has helped me deal with the short term, frustrations or troubles or imposter syndrome or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Well, and you look at I talked about the serendipitous moments. So me getting a studio in Old Town Fort Collins on Linden, stunning location. I am so blessed to have that. Excuse me. That was a serendipitous opportunity for me. And I was not planning that, but it happened and it's been successful. Did you know, I don't know if you knew this, Matt, did you know I have not borrowed any money or taken any money out of my personal funds to run that business since 2017?
No, I don't think we've talked about that.
Yeah.
I know we've looked at the numbers, the current state of the numbers, but that's awesome.
Yeah. Now
And
how
how many businesses can say that though?
I've got some COVID relief money. It was a very small amount, but that's it. And when I look back on that, I think even looking at my mom and dad had a business when I was growing up, they had to borrow money. They had to bring money out of their personal funds and stuff. And that's pretty typical for a new business, but I have not had to do that. So for that, I'm grateful. So that to me says, okay, I can do this and I can be a success at this, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just that imposter syndrome. Like when do I do this and how do I do it? And am I really ready? But I like the idea. So Matt's hatched this plan to take 30 days off from work and work 60 hours a week. I think that's what we said, 60 hours a week. Yeah. 60 hours a week on the business, full-time, balls to the wall, and not give up for 30 days and see where I am on that. And then from there I can be like, okay, I need to go back, or okay, now I need to hatch a plan for pulling the trigger to retire. So I like that idea a lot, and it affords that, you talk to me about what's your comfort level, what's your risk. You go in and you talk to my guy at Edward Jones when we're talking about money and finances. So he's like, hey, what's your risk level? Like, well, with retirement money that I never see, it's really high, right? So am I a very high risk taker when it comes to business and stuff? Probably a lot more conservative than some people are. And so I think for me, this is lower risk, 30 days off and see where I'm at. So I like that idea.
And then the other thought, which is, I share this with people ready to jump ship, is say you leave here, or maybe you said something on this podcast episode and the agency that employs you doesn't like it, and they're like, Bob, you're fired. Your paycheck stops. Yeah. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like if you walked out of here and got fired, the minute you walk out of here,
I think I'd probably do photography full time.
All right, there you go, man. Love it. Well, I
wouldn't become a foot model. That's for sure.
No, you tried that, right?
I tried it. Didn't work.
You tried setting up one of those Feet Finder accounts.
It didn't
work out. You didn't get any subscribers.
No.
Well, here's what I thought that was so cool, and just where I know you're going to succeed. So we're back to Spain, right? So you're in another country. You don't know the language. There's just the intricacies of the culture. You walk up to two random Spanish girls on the street, not speaking any Spanish more than the 6 days that we were there.
My wife's going to ask, why are you going and talking to Spanish girls in Spain? But anyway.
But I was with you. So I fully vouch for there was nothing inappropriate. Right. But you walk up and you're like, hola, chicas, right? You're piecing together the words, and they're like, who's this freaking guy? Who's this
right.
guy? They kind of look at you.
Damn Americanos.
Like, yeah. And you're like, hey, can I take some photos of you? And they're like, this is weird. You're just like, free photos. I'm a photographer. And then all of a sudden, these two, they were pretty standoffish, right? All of a sudden, they're like up against the brick wall on the cathedral, posing, and you're taking photos, getting their email, getting their Instagram handle.
Yeah.
And it's like, look what you just did. You're in another country, like another world, right?
Yeah, it was another world.
Doing your thing. Yeah. So like you can do that there.
Yeah.
Go do that 100 times in Old Town Fort Collins Thursday, Friday afternoon. And what that turns into. You did it here at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
I did it here. I did it one night in Old Town recently, and it was great. Brian that came to do videography with us and was on the trip, he's working out of my studio now. And so we've talked about going out and doing that pretty regularly downtown. Excuse me. And so, I think you're right. It goes back to where we were talking about relationships and feeling comfortable in your space. I feel totally comfortable in that space. I feel so comfortable talking to strangers on a regular basis. You ask my wife, we can't go anywhere without me talking to somebody. She's like, really? You can't even go to dinner without talking to somebody? Again. Yeah. So that's a comfort and apparently a strength I should capitalize on. So yeah.
So July 1st, man.
July 1st.
We're doing it.
We'll
hold you accountable. Maybe we'll release the episode like a week before that. We'll post Surprise. That clip. Joey, cut that clip. We'll put it all over social.
Surprise.
Well, man, since Joey's in on this podcast, let's bring him back in. Joey, what would you share with Bob?
So
encouragement, insight.
I think you got it right. I did a bunch of free stuff at the beginning, and then I did enough free stuff that people started hitting me up and saying how much. And then when people started saying how much, then I give them a price, and then I did more of that. And then as I continued to build a portfolio and a catalog of work, I was able to charge more. And then I found some mentors and shadowed some people that were a lot better than me. And then they brought me into a new world, new network, and I was able to do some bigger things. And then I was able to then in turn charge more. Nice. And then, now I work for, a marketing company that really, I feel like they appreciate my work a lot, and I feel like I'm compensated pretty fairly for it as well. But yeah, man, it's, I know the struggle.
Yeah.
I know the struggle for sure.
Well, and one of the things I love about our relationship is you're a mentor to me, and I'm a mentor to a couple other people, right? And in the process of mentoring them, I preach some of the same stuff that Matt's preaching to me, which is know your worth, know your value, right? Yeah. And that's huge, and that's what he was saying is know your worth, know your value, and be compensated for that. So, yes, that is something I strongly believe in. And, I think we talked about it in the past. One of the biggest struggles I have is time, because I'm working full-time over here, What would it be like to work only full-time over here? Right. So yeah, that's my goal. That's what I want to do.
Excited for you, man.
Me too.
And Mike McCallowicks even reached out to you and said, you've got this. Thank you, Mike.
That was pretty cool. I got that video. I'm like, that's pretty awesome. That was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Dude. So, thank you. Thank you for being part of my life and journey and jumping on the podcast. What do you think, before we go, what do you think you'll miss about law enforcement, or what have been some of your favorite memories? Here's why I ask this, because you are, you talk about like when Greg walked off the plane, right? And you're like, oh, you're kind of judging him, the stereotypical big, tall, meathead, bodybuilder looking guy. And he's like, oh, you're a cop. You're probably this asshole, right? So like, I think this even came up with you, but you're not the stereotypical archetype personality style. Like if somebody just met you on the street and said, what did you do for 30 years before this? They're not going to guess law enforcement officer. Yeah. So just talk about what did you bring to law enforcement that you felt really helped law enforcement? And that would have been some of your favorite memories.
I think growing up in the family I grew up in, it was a very strong moral, ethical environment, and a lot of service to other people. So I saw my mom and dad serve other people and serve me and serve my sister. And so as I grew older, I felt like starting to feel this compelling urge to serve people, but I wasn't really sure exactly what that looked like. I became a park ranger, the non-law enforcement park ranger at Wind Cave National Park. And I found from that I started enjoying really integrating and talking and engaging people. And then realized I really think that there's more I could do in this world. I was a geologist of all things at the time. And I felt compelled to serve people. So I looked for opportunities to serve people. And so law enforcement was attractive to me that way. It was different every single day. It's challenging. It's exciting. You drive fast and stuff. But then the ability to be able to serve individuals at their weakest, most challenging point in their life, because the police don't call us to go, hey, I want you to come over and take a report about the great day I'm having. They don't do that. They call us because something crappy's happened, likely, right? And so whether it's really, really, really crappy, like watching a kid die in their mom's lap in a car accident, or whether it's, oh, somebody stole some stuff from my business, it's still a bad day for them. And all of those experiences in between, right? And I think so for me, it's about how can I serve other people? And I've extended that into my business too, as a side note, because I feel like I have an obligation to continue serving people. And that's the part that I might miss. Like that part about being able to really be there when somebody's in a need, has a need and needs some stability or needs some help or needs, intervention or whatever it is. I really, really, really love that about my job. So I think that'll be the part that I miss most. I think, I ran a camp for at-risk youth for many, many years, and we took 40 kids up in the mountains for a week, and they'd hiked and biked and horseback ride and whitewater raft. And I ran that with law enforcement, firefighters, National Guard members, and seeing the kids come in there with these giant chips on their shoulders. They came from at-risk homes, single-parent homes and stuff, and have them leave at the end of the week crying because they didn't want to go, right? And those are the memories that'll mean something to me, being able to impact 1,000+ kids in our community, being able to impact individuals like when they're having a really bad day and being there for them. Those are the things that I will miss. And I will try to compensate that by serving people in another way.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
What would you say in the close to 30 years has been your most memorable experience, interaction?
Oh, that's super tough. I have so many amazing, memorable moments, and some of them are super sad and some of them are super happy. I'm trying to think of one that just really stands out. I think about the times that a parent was grieving and I was there for them, those are the hardest. Yeah. But knowing that I was there to serve them and help them, I'm thinking about one specific incident where a kid got run over in her driveway and the dad was the driver of the vehicle and it was an accident. I think about moments like that and in their worst moment, I was there to help them and serve them. And they may not even remember me or know me, but I remember them and know them. And being able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Love you, brother. I just wanted to make you cry again.
How many more times are you going to make me cry?
No, that was the last one.
That was the last one. You sure?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. You're kind of a crier.
I'm kind of a crier. Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for being here. I'm
sure.
Pumped of the journey we took in Spain together.
It
Like, how many
so
times
cool.
you get to do that with a group like that?
It's unreal. I would highly suggest to anybody out there watching this podcast that they consider doing this with you, because it was, again, life altering. The experiences, the food, the people, the topics that we talked about. I mean, we talked about some heavy stuff at times.
Yeah, we did.
We talked about some amazing stuff. I mean, we learned each other's stories about, finding God. We learned each other's stories about, troubles that you've been in the past, and, and how we got to where we are now and what makes us successful people. And, we could really focus on the troubles that you've had in the past. Just teasing.
No, but we did. I mean, we had these deep philosophical, like what happens after you die, all the way down to, I think I tricked every single one of you into ordering something inappropriate at a restaurant.
Sorry, Greg, but that was hilarious.
Like high level back to like second grade, and Greg, we got him the best, right?
We got him the best. Yeah.
Rolled in, and that was awesome.
That's too bad, Greg.
Sorry, Greg. Gotcha. I knew I'd get you.
Yeah.
See, he thought he wasn't going to get caught by that.
Yeah.
He wasn't paying attention. You got to pay attention.
You got to pay attention. Yeah.
So, hey, before we go, we wrap up every episode the same way. You grabbed your favorite color off of our Leave Your Mark wall. And what is the statement that you are going to leave with the world?
First, I have something for you.
What?
So, in law enforcement, I think it started out as a military thing, but in law enforcement, there is a tradition of handing somebody a challenge coin. And the tradition is that when you hand them a challenge coin, they have to carry it with them. And then if I come up and challenge you to see your coin and you don't have it with you, you owe me a beer.
A beer? Okay.
A beer.
All right.
So there you go.
Got it.
That's your challenge coin.
But I can't show what's on the coin, right?
Yeah. It's a Northern Colorado law enforcement agency.
It's a Northern Colorado agency. I love it. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So
carry this with me. So
my color, I really like blue, but this is pretty close to blue. It's kind of a seafoam green, which probably is actually, I was thinking about it when we were picking it off the wall outside. I was thinking that's a great combination because my wife's favorite color is green. My favorite color is blue. We are in this world together. So kind of a seafoam green kind of things. So I wrote suffering equals pain times resistance. Okay. So this was given to me by my therapist, and I, in life, you will always have pain. Like there's pain. There's blisters on your feet on the Camino. There is, how am I going to make today's mortgage payment? There is, my kids are struggling with this and I can't solve this problem for them, right? So there's pain. You will always, always have pain. Suffering comes when you resist the pain and fight against the pain. That's what suffering is. So when I have pain, like my kid's going through something and it's a big struggle and I can't fix it for them, I can't help them, but I push back. I try to give them advice that they're not taking, or I get frustrated because I want this to be something that goes away for them and it doesn't. I mean, heartache, you can't heartache away. You can't make heartache go away for somebody else. Whatever the case may be. And so I'm resisting that and I'm fighting against that. That's when I start suffering as an individual. Likewise, in the business world, if you are struggling and having pain and to grow your business, and I resist it and I refuse to commit to a date, it creates suffering, right? So for me, this is huge. As soon as I heard this, I was like, oh, I can't change the fact that I have pain. There's always going to be pain in your life, physical pain, mental pain, but I can choose how I respond to it and whether I resist it, whether I accept it, understand where it's at physically inside my body and deal with that and move on. I can do that. And if I can do that, then I don't have to suffer anymore.
Love it. Bob Younger, thanks for being here.
Matt,
that's a wrap.
I sure appreciate you. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here, and please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. I would be extremely grateful if you would go to mattshoup.com and click on the free tools and download those. On my website, you'll find that I've got some things for you wherever you are on your journey in life, leadership, and business. Start with those free tools. Maybe next, check out a couple of my books, my video coaching series, or maybe consider even coming to spend a week with me in Spain on one of my leadership adventures.